Have you ever heard of a punishment that fits the crime so perfectly it feels like something out of a cartoon? Well, get ready, because today we're diving into a story where justice took a very, very old school turn. We're talking about a thief who got caught and was sentenced to a punishment straight out of a principal's office from the 1950s. He was forced to write over and over again, "I will not steal." Imagine the scene. You've got a guy who probably thought he was pretty slick, sneaking around, taking things that weren't his. Maybe he'd done it before. Maybe this was his first time. Either way, he got caught red-handed. But instead of just being thrown in a cell or slapped with a fine, the authorities decided to get creative. They handed him a pen and a massive stack of paper. His task? To write the simple yet powerful sentence, "I will not steal," hundreds, maybe even thousands of times. You can just picture the look on his face. First, probably confusion. Then maybe a bit of relief. Hey, it's not hard labor, right? But then, the reality sinks in. The sheer, mind-numbing monotony of it all. The first few lines might feel easy. "I will not steal." Okay, I will not steal. Got it. But by line 50, the hand starts to cramp. By line 100, the words probably start to look like meaningless squiggles on the page. His brain, which was once plotting how to nab a wallet or a phone, is now completely consumed by the physical act of writing this one single, solitary phrase. This isn't just about punishment. It's about reprogramming. It's a form of behavioral therapy, in a way. Every time his hand forms the letters, every time his eyes scan the words, the message is being drilled into his subconscious. It's the ultimate lesson in cause and effect. The action of stealing led directly to the consequence of this tedious, repetitive task. It has a far more personal and psychological punishment than simply paying a fine and forgetting about it the next day. A fine is just money. This is time. This is effort. This is a mental marathon. Let's break down the psychology here. When you do something repeatedly, it creates neural pathways in your brain. It's how we learn to ride a bike, play a musical instrument, or even type on a keyboard. The brain strengthens the connections related to that activity. So, what happens when you force someone to repeatedly write a negative command like "I will not steal"? You're essentially forcing their brain to focus on the concept of not stealing. The message isn't just "stealing is bad," it's a personal affirmation. "I will not steal." It makes the concept personal. It moves from an abstract rule to a personal commitment. Think about the physical toll. The cramping fingers, the aching wrist, the sore back from hunching over a desk for hours on end. Every bit of physical discomfort becomes directly associated with the act of theft. It's a powerful, non-violent way to make someone truly feel the consequences of their actions. It's not about inflicting pain for the sake of it, but about creating a memorable, negative association. The next time the thought of stealing even crosses his mind, he might physically remember the ache in his hand and the sheer boredom of that room. Now, you might be thinking, does this actually work? Is this an effective way to rehabilitate someone? The answer is complex. For some, it might be a life-changing wake-up call. The sheer absurdity and tediousness of the punishment could be enough to make them rethink their life choices. It gives them a lot of time to think, that's for sure. With nothing else to do but write that sentence, your mind is going to wander. You're going to reflect on how you ended up in that chair, with that pen in your hand. You might think about the victim of your crime, the trouble you've caused your family, and the future you're throwing away. For a person who is capable of reflection, this could be a powerful catalyst for change. However, for a more hardened criminal, it might just be a silly inconvenience. They might just see it as a game, something to endure until they're free to go back to their old ways. They could be writing the words without an ounce of sincerity, just going through the motions. In that case, the physical act might not translate into a psychological shift. It really depends on the individual's mindset and their capacity for change. But even then, it's not a total loss. At the very least, it took a thief off the streets for a significant amount of time and made their life incredibly inconvenient and boring for a while. This kind of poetic justice has a long history. Think back to school days. Did you ever have to write lines on a chalkboard? "I will not talk in class. I will respect my teacher." It's a classic disciplinary tool for a reason. It's simple, it's non-violent, and it forces the person to confront their own behavior directly. This story just takes that concept from the classroom to the world of criminal justice. It as a reminder that sometimes the most effective solutions aren't the most high-tech or the most severe, but the ones that are the most psychologically clever. Let's compare this to other forms of punishment. A short jail sentence can sometimes be a badge of honor in certain circles. Community service can be beneficial, but the connection to the original crime isn't always direct. A fine can be easily paid and forgotten, especially if the person has money. But this, writing lines, is uniquely personal and, frankly, a little humiliating. It treats the offender not just as a criminal, but as a student who needs to learn a very basic lesson about living in a society. It's a bit patronizing, and that sting of embarrassment might be more effective than fear for some people. It also sends a message to the community. It says that crime will be met with consequences, but that those consequences can be creative and focused on reform rather than just retribution. It generates conversation. People talk about it, they share the story, and the underlying message, "Don't steal," gets amplified. It becomes a local legend, a cautionary tale that parents might tell their kids. You better behave, or you will end up like that guy who had to write, "I will not steal" 1,000 times. The story is also incredibly visual. You can see it all playing out in your mind's eye: the sterile room, the ticking clock, the growing mountain of paper filled with the same handwriting, the slumping shoulders of the person forced to write. It's a scene of pure, unadulterated tedium. And in our fast-paced world, where we are constantly seeking stimulation, the punishment of absolute boredom is a special kind of torment. We're so used to instant gratification that the idea of being forced into a single, repetitive, unengaging task for hours or days on end sounds like a nightmare. What do you think happened to this guy afterward? Did he see the light? Did he emerge from that room a changed man, with a newfound respect for the property of others and a serious case of carpal tunnel syndrome? Or did he just have a sore hand and a funny story to tell his friends? We may never know the long-term outcome for this specific individual, but the story itself serves a purpose. It makes us think about justice, punishment, and rehabilitation in a new way. It challenges our assumptions about what it means to hold someone accountable. Does justice always have to be harsh and severe? Or can it be clever, psychological, and maybe even a little bit humorous in its irony? This case suggests that there's room for creativity in the justice system. It's about finding a punishment that doesn't just fit the crime, but that also teaches the lesson. The goal, after all, isn't just to punish, but to prevent the crime from happening again. And maybe, just maybe, as he was on his 999th repetition, something clicked. Maybe the sheer force of will it took to complete the task made him realize he could apply that same determination to something positive. Maybe, in the end, he learned more than just "I will not steal." Maybe he learned something about perseverance, discipline, and the simple fact that our actions, big and small, always have consequences. It's a powerful lesson, and he had plenty of time to let it sink in, one letter at a time. So what are your thoughts? Is this a brilliant form of justice, or just a waste of time and paper? Let me know down in the comments. I'm really curious to hear what you all think about this unusual approach to fighting crime. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating events. We'll see you in the next one.